Super Smash Bros. Series is well known for its diverse selection of characters, and of everything we fans enjoy about this series, guessing who will be joining the lineup is always the source of the biggest discussions. We look for patterns and we come up with fan rules to justify our thinking, but really, we don't need to. Over the years, series creator Masahiro Sakurai has gone on the record to discuss the creative process, what has changed game on game, and what has remained the same since the very beginning. That's what this Source Gaming series is all about. I am NantenJex, and with the help of YouTuber Yoshiilla, we're going to teach you all the secrets of character selection for the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. Smash 4 was a game of firsts. The first crossover release Smash Bros., the first puppet character, amiibo, and so on. But arguably, the biggest first that this game brought was the first edition of downloadable content post-release. Supporting a game after release is fairly common, especially for fighting games, so it was not a surprise when Super Smash Bros. Followed suit. However, DLC development in any game is almost always different from regular development. It's often done with a smaller team, and the priority is to get people to buy each thing individually rather than as a whole package. For Smash Bros. And Sakurai, where everything often gets decided early on and rarely strays from the plan, this demands a very different form of development and causes characters to be chosen in a very different way. For Smash 4, we got 7 characters for DLC, 3 of whom were veterans, and we'll be discussing why all of these characters got chosen. Although, to be honest, for the veterans, there have never really been any official statements as to why they were chosen. On that front, we can only really speculate, but I think the reason is obvious: popularity. After Super Smash Bros. Brawl came out, Mewtwo was by far the most requested veteran to return from fans, but from the jump from Brawl to Smash 4, the only cut character to return was Dr. Mario, and there was a very different reason for that. So if Sakurai and the team were going to decide based on popularity, Mewtwo is certainly the frontrunner choice. And it's very likely that Roy and Lucas were the next 2 most popular candidates, at least from the cut characters who didn't have other issues facing their inclusion like the Ice Climbers and Pokemon Trainer did, and possibly Snake, who, due to being third party, likely had different hurdles facing him. Wolf was probably the only other candidate for this choice, as young Link and Pichu were certainly not seen as very popular. So why were Roy and Lucas chosen over Wolf? Well, there's a possibility, though not confirmed, that the team wanted one Melee veteran and one Brawl veteran to join Mewtwo. Roy was certainly more popular than young Link and Pichu, who were seen as replaced or a joke character, and while Lucas and Wolf could be equal in popularity, we already had a semi-clone of Fox in the game, while Ness was all on his lonesome. Get some variety here, you know? This is especially the case as Sakurai didn't really want to have any clone characters added to the game. In fact, when talking about Roy's inclusion, the reason his moveset was slightly altered so that he'd sometimes have a reverse grip on the sword was specifically in an attempt to de-clone him from Marth, while also making sure that he stood out from Ike. Trying to make these characters more original was also key. So let's move on from the veterans to the actual newcomers, and we have 4 fighters remaining, with 3 of them being guest additions. From this, we can ascertain that there was most likely a push for guest characters here, and this makes sense. Some characters just feel like they are base roster additions to appeal to Nintendo loyalists, but not necessarily the wider gaming audience. Each DLC fighter needed to stand out on its own, and the main protagonists of major third-party series like Street Fighter and Final Fantasy were likely to shift more copies than secondary or tertiary characters from Nintendo's own franchises. But it's not just this reason. In an interview with Nintendo Dream a year after DLC began development, Sakurai mentioned some of his thoughts behind why DLC characters were chosen. One of them, as just mentioned, was that the character had to be known. When the interviewer mentioned Dombei from Shin Onigashima, Sakurai simply laughed and said no one would know him outside of Japan. That's harsh, but true. But it's not just that, a moveset also needs to be considered. If Dombei was being added, how would he play? What moves would he use? These factors are important, and given the slow amount of characters being added and the smaller team size, each character would need to stand out, be unique, and introduce a brand new playstyle. That was also extremely important to Sakurai. Actually, the amount of work spent making one fighter is more than it was during development on the main game, because we developed new characters on the premise that they would possess unique abilities no other character has. Rather than trying to emulate pre-existing characters, we tried to introduce brand new styles of gameplay, and that's how we ended up with these DLC characters. And who better to show this philosophy off than the king of crossovers himself, Ryu. All of the guest characters so far have been major icons in gaming, and Ryu follows this pattern. Many see him as Mr. Fighting Game. Sakurai commented that he has had the most crossovers of any video game icon, so his inclusion in Smash was really a matter of when and not why. In the past, Sakurai expressed interest in adding a fighting game character, and even considered Heihachi at one point, but Ryu's greater renown made him a far more sensible choice. Using his traditional Street Fighter inputs allowed Ryu to be unique from most Smash newcomers, which fit in with the criteria for DLC. Some people theorise that Mega Man already being in Smash helped with Ryu getting in, but this might not be true. Checking the copyright in Smash 4 reveals that Ryu and Mega Man are owned by individual divisions of Capcom and not the company as a whole, so Sakurai may have had to go through all new means again, just like he had to do with Cloud. Cloud fits a lot of the same criteria that was mentioned with Ryu. He is a big gaming icon. The limit break is a unique mechanic. He can be considered as Mr. RPG, and he fits very easily into Smash. But Sakurai has given us more in-depth details for why Cloud might have made the cut. Sakurai said that he specifically wanted to represent Final Fantasy as a series, rather than any individual character, and of all the protagonists of the Final Fantasy series, Cloud is by far the most popular and most well-known hero. It's kind of a funny comment given that the content in Smash Bros. Is almost entirely from a single Final Fantasy game, but I guess sometimes our ambitions can't be reality. Cloud felt like an impossible pick because he just lacked a big Nintendo presence. After all, Final Fantasy VII was famously the first Final Fantasy to not be on a Nintendo platform. Sakurai actually did address this, but pointed out that while Final Fantasy VII wasn't on Nintendo, at least at this point in time, Cloud had been in games like Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories and Final Fantasy Explorers. Even though these were more like cameos, they still count. Way to skirt the rules there, Sakurai. So only 2 more to go, and these 2 are a bit more complicated. Revealed at the exact same time, Corrin and Bayonetta make up the final additions of the roster for Super Smash Bros. 4, and they were controversial to say the least. And to explain their additions, we actually have to get a little investigative, because for once, it doesn't look like we can trust Nintendo's words completely. After all, I'm pretty confident that Bayonetta wasn't the winner of the ballot, and I'm going to prove it, because Nintendo won't. I was working on this story for months, and he just said it on stream.
6年以上前、スマブラ4の時、スマブラ投稿権というアンケートを行ったのですが、新規参戦希望キャラクターの中でトップだったのがソラです。
Alright, let's do this, and I'll share what I know. As Sakurai said in the final Smash Ultimate presentation, Sora won the ballot really, but presumably due to the difficulty of actually getting him in the game, and maybe because they had already gone for Cloud and that was hard enough, they decided to go for someone else. This is what the realizable character stipulation must have meant. I also imagine that the character would have to be able to push DLC, especially when they weren't in any kind of bundle pass. So niche popular Nintendo first parties like K. Rool and Bandana D were also not really realizable. All of this most likely threw Bayonetta to the top of the ranking board, and that's why she made it in. But there is another reason, the actual definitive proof of my original investigation. Through data mining, we know that Bayonetta was in development before the ballot was even announced. When Mewtwo dropped in April 2015, the game's files were looked into and 6 files were found. Mewtwo, Lucas, who had been announced, Roy, Ryu, and 2 dummy Mario files. And in these dummy files, they found data for Ike and Zero Suit Samus. Ike was obviously used as a base for Cloud, and Zero Suit Samus as a base for Bayonetta. But this update came with Mewtwo, who launched after the ballot, but the update must have been completed before. So Nintendo was always planning on Bayonetta being in the game, ballot or not. However, I don't think Nintendo always planned on misdirecting people. I do think after all of the top picks from the ballot were passed over due to not being possible at the time, Bayonetta did win. She was the winner of the realizable fighters, and my reasoning is actually our final DLC fighter, Corrin. We know from the past that Sakurai always decides the full roster at the start of development, yet a 7th fighter originally wasn't on the cards. Sakurai mentioned in an interview that his team realised they had a bit more time to work on the game than planned, and so could add a 7th fighter. Further data mining backs this up as well, as up until the Mario Maker stage was added in September 2015, there were only 6 DLC slots, and then this number suddenly increased to 7. The last update before this was July-August 2015, and by that time Sakurai and his team would have picked the Ballot winner, so that they could have at least 6 months development time on them. So picking the Ballot winner and deciding on a 7th character likely all happened at the same time. It's my belief that originally the 7th character was the Ballot winner, but after Bayonetta came out on top, Nintendo could use that 7th character for something else. And so they did. You might argue that Cloud or Ryu are bigger icons and would have had more votes, but you need to think of the Nintendo speculation scene at the time. Ryu was leaked very shortly after the Ballot was announced, so people knew he was coming regardless. He wouldn't have gotten any votes. As for Cloud, while he is popular, a lot of Nintendo fans felt like he was unlikely due to having a strong connection with Sony. Final Fantasy could have gotten in, but it would have been Terra or Cecil instead, and votes would have been split amongst all of the viable candidates. Meanwhile, Bayonetta was big for the Wii U amongst Nintendo fans with the Bayo 2 exclusivity. She was already being treated as a Nintendo property despite not being one, and was being speculated on for Smash 4, so she certainly would have had quite a few votes. But I will admit this is a theory, it's just one that lines up with all the facts presented and where no one is lying. Anyway, let's wrap this video up and talk about Corrin. Corrin was the only first-party newcomer added via Smash DLC, and they were from a game that hadn't launched in most of the world when they released, although this was said to be an unforeseen bonus for promotion, not an intention for inclusion. They were also from a series which had already seen 2 newcomers and 1 DLC character added in Smash 4, so it was quite a controversial pick. Due to all of this, Sakurai has been quite open in justifying his decision, and has acknowledged that these issues did cross his mind. Corrin's primary reason for being chosen was because the team wanted a character from a brand new Nintendo title. One of the things that DLC can do is represent games that only existed after the base game was released, and Smash as a platform is perfect for promoting them. It wasn't just Corrin who was decided on for this reason, it's also why we got the Splatoon Mii costumes and the Mario Maker stage. Corrin has a unique moveset being part dragon, a staple of the Fire Emblem series not yet seen in Smash, and was of course highly relevant. So was Fates the only game they could promote at this time? To be honest, no, but I do think Fates was the best choice they could have made. I won't go into too much detail here though, because I did do an entire video on that topic, which I will link at the end of this video. And well, that's coming up soon because that does it for the DLC for Smash 4. But before we reach the ultimate Super Smash Bros. Title, let's take a look at which characters didn't make the cut for Super Smash Bros. 4. Both in the base game and DLC. Sorry this video took so long to come out. It wasn't our intention to leave it this long, but various things happened. We actually had that completely different section covering Bayonetta and Corrin, which we were going to try and make some new assets for, and then it all ended up becoming irrelevant when Sakurai basically just blurted out that Bayonetta didn't win the ballot, and I had to rewrite whole the end of this script and all stuff like that. So it sort of pushed things back a little bit further. But it also meant that we no longer had to wait for any assets, so we could actually get this out a bit quicker. So yeah, I guess it's a good thing in the end. But let us know what you think of this video, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Were you happy with the DLC choices, were you disappointed? And yeah, look forward to the cut characters video next. Once we've done that, the only title left will be Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So we're getting somewhat close to the end of this series. Which is, it's a bit sad, but it was going to happen inevitably. Anyway, patrons on screen right now. They're all lovely people, and you can join them by following the Patreon link in this description, or clicking on wherever it is on the end screen here. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe, and always remember to return to the source.